I think what you see is elite playmaking ability. That's in him. You've seen it. We've seen it. You saw it in college. You saw it on tape last year. Sure, there's a ways to go, but what rookie isn't? I mean, what first-year player doesn't have a long way to go? So I'm excited to get started with him and all of our quarterbacks. You see when he comes in the office, he's come in about 3 times, and we've had a chance to talk a little bit and what his off-season schedule's going.
What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Wow, today's episode is a big one, so buckle up. Seriously, you're not going to believe what Browns fans have been debating all season. With the NFL Combine putting everything under the spotlight, the entire football world is watching closely. Today, we're breaking down the striking difference between how former head coach Kevin Stefanski dealt with Shedeur Sanders and the completely different approach new head coach Todd Monken is bringing to the table. And once you really step back and look at it, that contrast might honestly shock you. Meanwhile, General Manager Andrew Berry has been making headlines with his recent remarks. Browns reporters are keeping it real and not sugarcoating anything. The story unfolding in Cleveland is quickly becoming one of the most fascinating quarterback narratives in the entire NFL. So stay locked in, because we're unpacking every detail today. Raw, honest, and straight to the point, exactly how Mad Dog TV delivers it. But first, we've got to set the stage, because the context here matters more than you might think. Shedeur Sanders came into Cleveland last season in a situation that, looking back now, clearly wasn't ideal. He joined a roster led by head coach Kevin Stefanski, who at times seemed to struggle just to say the rookie's name. That's not speculation, it's reality. No exaggeration here. The moment was captured on camera, and once you see it, the reaction says everything.
Coming here, and you had a good opportunity in New York. I know you wanted to be head coach, but you know the 3 guys you have right now. Have you dug in, looked at them yet, or no? We're still in that process.
I've dug in and looked at them.
Okay, and what did you see?
As I said up there, I think you start with Shedeur. First of all, he's a little bit more mobile than I thought. He gets himself out of trouble more than I would have thought. Extended plays. He's got a real feel in the pocket for when it starts to collapse. Sure, could we improve his drop?
Yeah.
Could we improve early decision making, getting the ball out of his hands? Of course we can. Yeah. But there is some playmaking ability there. You've seen it. You've seen and I don't know where his development started. Yeah. Was it when he first got here?
Yeah.
Was when he started playing or practicing?
Pretty much.
Well, then what you're saying is you have then a half year.
Yes.
You don't even have a full year.
Yes.
Okay, well, you can see some things.
As Shedeur Sanders was grinding day after day, fighting to carve out his place as a rookie in one of the most demanding leagues in professional sports, the person who should have been his biggest advocate inside the building seemed to dodge questions about him like a politician avoiding a headline-making scandal. While that was happening off the field, Sanders was quietly putting together impressive performances late in the season, stacking wins and flashing the kind of talent that reminded everyone why so many believers backed him after his standout run at Colorado. Yet somehow, the head coach still struggled to even deliver a straightforward sentence about him. Now, fast forward to 2026, and suddenly the entire atmosphere feels completely different. Todd Monken has stepped in as the new head coach of the Cleveland Browns, and the shift in tone is impossible to ignore. The moment Monken stepped up to the microphone at the NFL Combine, you could feel it immediately. The energy around the team had flipped. He faced the media with confidence, calm but firm, completely locked in on the message he wanted to deliver. Looking directly at reporters, Monken spoke about Shedeur Sanders with real excitement and respect, the exact kind of backing every young quarterback hopes to hear from his head coach. The contrast between Monken and Kevin Stefanski is so dramatic that it almost feels unreal. Honestly, it looks less like the same franchise and more like 2 completely different organizations operating just 1 season apart. But before we go any further, we have to talk about General Manager Andrew Berry, because his perspective is a critical part of this entire conversation. Berry stepped forward and made one thing crystal clear. The Browns fully expect real competition at the quarterback position moving forward. He even pointed directly to Shedeur Sanders, highlighting the strong flashes the rookie showed during his first NFL season. Berry openly acknowledged that the learning curve for a first-year quarterback in the NFL is incredibly steep, but he also made it clear he's excited about Sanders' growth and what could come next. At first glance, some people might brush those comments off as standard front office language, but when you really listen to the wording, there's something more there. Berry didn't talk about Sanders like a disposable project or a player the organization is quietly preparing to move on from. Instead, he spoke about him with the kind of energy reserved for a young quarterback the franchise genuinely believes in, a player who could become an important piece of the team's future. Berry also confirmed that he and Todd Monken have spent significant time evaluating all three quarterbacks currently in the building. That includes Shedeur Sanders, Dillon Gabriel, and veteran Deshaun Watson. He admitted the team still has major decisions ahead, including monitoring the veteran market and analyzing the upcoming draft class. And in a rare moment of honesty from an NFL executive, Berry even acknowledged that nobody inside the building truly knows how the quarterback room will look by May or once OTAs begin. But one thing about his message stood out immediately. He isn't backing away from the competition. He isn't pretending Sanders is just another name on the depth chart. Instead, the Browns' front office appears to view this quarterback situation as a genuine opportunity, and they're approaching it with open eyes and a willingness to explore every possible path forward. Compared to the uneasy energy surrounding the team last season, that alone feels like a major shift. Now let's move into one of the most fascinating angles of this entire debate, the comparison between Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson. At the NFL Combine, one Browns reporter stepped up and delivered a brutally honest perspective that immediately caught attention. And trust me, when you hear this point, it's hard to argue with the logic behind it. The reporter highlighted a simple but powerful fact that remains true regardless of how anyone personally feels about either quarterback. The reporter highlighted a simple but powerful fact that remains true regardless of how anyone personally feels about either quarterback. Over the last 5 years, Deshaun Watson has appeared in only 19 games. 19. Just pause for a second and really process that number. We're not talking about someone who missed a single season because of injury. We're talking about a quarterback who has essentially been absent from consistent NFL action for nearly half a decade. Watson's time in Cleveland has been limited by suspensions and injuries, leaving him with only 19 appearances for the Browns since arriving with the franchise. The reporter explained that anyone who truly understands football, especially players who have lived through the grind of the sport, knows that you can't simply step away from high-level competition for years and expect everything to instantly come back. Football isn't a casual pickup game. It's a brutally fast, incredibly complex system that demands constant rhythm and timing. You can't just walk back in after a long absence and expect your instincts, chemistry, and command of an NFL offense to magically return overnight. The speed of the game punishes hesitation immediately. Watson served his suspension, and when he did return, injuries kept interrupting his momentum. Now he finds himself in a battle for the starting job against a young quarterback who is hungry, healthy, and has spent his entire life actively competing at the position. The reporter made the argument crystal clear. When you compare a player who has appeared in only 19 games over multiple seasons to someone who has been consistently on the field year after year, most coaches will naturally lean towards the player who has stayed in rhythm with the game. And that logic applies no matter what position you're talking about. Whether it's quarterback, running back, or wide receiver, the NFL is a league built on repetition and consistency. That's exactly where Shedeur Sanders currently has the advantage. Watson, at least for now, hasn't been able to deliver that same level of stability. And to be fair, that statement isn't meant as a personal attack on Deshaun Watson. At his peak, Watson was unquestionably one of the most electric quarterbacks in football. There was a time when he looked like the kind of franchise centerpiece teams build their entire organization around. But the harsh truth about the NFL is that past greatness doesn't secure your job in the present. What happened 3 or 4 years ago doesn't win a quarterback battle in 2026. What matters is what you can show right now, this offseason, this spring, this training camp, when the pads come on and the competition gets real. And at this moment, Shedeur Sanders appears to hold the advantage in that race. Now we're arriving at the part of this story that really made Browns fans stop and rewind their screens. Social media lit up as people began comparing side-by-side clips of how Kevin Stefanski and Todd Monken each spoke about Shedeur Sanders. And once those clips were placed next to each other, the difference jumped out immediately. This wasn't a subtle shift in tone. It was obvious, dramatic, and honestly a little shocking to watch. Looking back at it now, it raises a tough question about what Sanders might have been dealing with during his rookie season.
Let's start with Kevin Stefanski. When reporters pressed Stefanski with direct questions about Sanders, his role, his development, his opportunities, the head coach delivered a masterclass in sidestepping the topic. He danced around Sanders' name like it was something he didn't want to touch publicly. Instead of addressing the quarterback directly, he kept steering the conversation towards broad ideas about player development and the careful handling of young talent. He kept repeating that the roster needed improvement across the board. He spoke about multiple players, different position groups, and broad team concepts, but noticeably never mentioned Shedeur Sanders by name. When reporters pressed him directly and asked why Sanders wasn't getting an opportunity to spark the offense, Stefanski simply redirected the conversation back to the other quarterbacks and answered in circles. At no point did he offer the public support, confidence, or endorsement that a young quarterback typically needs from his head coach. For any young player trying to grow and establish himself in the NFL, that's the last kind of environment you want around you. The idea of a head coach treating your name like it's something he'd rather avoid saying is a tough reality to face. Just imagine what that atmosphere must have felt like for Sanders. You're a high-profile selection, your talent is obvious, your resume speaks for itself, your work ethic is clear to everyone watching. Yet the head coach still isn't standing behind you publicly. That kind of message doesn't just affect the player, it echoes through the locker room, the fan base, and even around the league. For someone trying to prove he belongs, that silence can feel crushing. And still, despite all of that and a difficult coaching dynamic, Sanders responded the best way he could. Late in the season, he stepped onto the field and produced results. He helped deliver wins and sparked genuine excitement about what he might become moving forward. That alone says a lot about his mindset and competitive drive. Now flip the perspective and look at how Todd Monken approached the exact same topic, because this is where things start getting really interesting. When Monken met with reporters at the Combine, questions about Shedeur Sanders came flying in from every direction. Some seemed designed to catch him off guard, others tried to bait him into downplaying Sanders or creating controversy. But Monken never blinked. He stayed composed, direct, honest. There was even a sense of enthusiasm in how he handled the moment. When someone asked whether he expected the wave of questions about Sanders, Monken smiled and admitted he had a feeling they were coming. Instead of dodging the conversation, he leaned into it. He addressed the draft narratives about where Sanders might land. He talked about how Sanders ultimately arrived in Cleveland. He even acknowledged the reports claiming Sanders didn't originally want to end up there.
Monken faced every topic head-on without sounding defensive or pointing fingers. That kind of composure shows real emotional intelligence from a head coach. And then he shared a story that quickly became one of the most talked-about moments from the entire Combine media session. It perfectly illustrated the early connection forming between Monken and Sanders. Monken explained that he had already spoken with Sanders 3 different times since taking the job, and that Sanders planned to visit the facility soon. Then he told a story about something unexpected that happened on February 5th, his birthday. A package suddenly arrived at his house. At first, he assumed it was a gift from his wife, but when he opened it, he discovered a porcelain horse head sitting inside the box. It was a gift from Shedeur Sanders. The rookie quarterback had sent his new head coach a birthday present. Monken said he later asked Sanders what inspired the gift, and Sanders casually explained that he simply liked the piece and had bought one for himself, too. Monken laughed about the Godfather-style horsehead reference, joking with reporters about it before revealing that he placed the gift in his office alongside the Cleveland helmets where he sees it every day. And honestly, that small story speaks volumes. Players don't send thoughtful birthday gifts to coaches they don't respect or plan to build a relationship with. They don't make that effort if they're mentally checked out or uninterested in the situation. Sanders reaching out like that and planning multiple meetings with Monken signals something important. It suggests he's invested in what's being built in Cleveland. He's engaged, motivated, ready to be part of the process. And Monken clearly appreciates the energy Sanders brings to the table. When the conversation turned toward the quarterback competition itself, Monken delivered one of the most balanced answers you'll hear from a head coach. Instead of protecting predetermined decisions, he focused on evaluating talent honestly. When asked whether Sanders would simply be handed the starting job, Monken shut that idea down immediately. He explained that the competition would be real. Then he walked through the situation step by step. None of the three quarterbacks currently in the room, Dillon Gabriel, Deshaun Watson, or Shedeur Sanders, has a large enough recent sample of play to be awarded the job automatically. Monken acknowledged that Sanders showed flashes late last season where he truly looked like a starting-level NFL quarterback. He also admitted Watson had moments in the past, including standout performances against teams like Baltimore, where his elite ability was undeniable. And he pointed out that Gabriel built a reputation for consistent play across major college programs. In other words, Monken recognized every player's strengths without dismissing anyone. But the most important part of his message wasn't about statistics or resumes. It was about philosophy. Monken said the priority right now is building an environment where each quarterback feels comfortable operating within the system, because if a player doesn't feel comfortable, you're never going to see his true potential on the field. That's the type of perspective you expect from a coach focused on development. It's the mindset of someone trying to build a winning culture rather than simply managing a public narrative. And when you compare that philosophy to the atmosphere many people felt around the team last season, the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. Monken also shared his vision for the 2026 Cleveland Browns, and his comments definitely got fans paying attention. When asked about expectations in his first year as head coach, he didn't lower the bar or talk about patience, he talked about winning. That alone energized the fan base. But what really caught people's attention was how he evaluated the roster during the interview process. He looked at the final stretch of last season and saw a team that lost to the Bills by just 3 points at home, a team that beat the Steelers in Cleveland, a team that managed to defeat the Bengals on the road. Those results, he said, tell a story. If the Browns start the 2026 season with similar performances in the first 3 weeks, they could easily be sitting at 2-1. And once you reach that point in the NFL, anything can happen. Monken made it clear he doesn't view the Browns as a rebuilding team. He sees a roster that simply needs adjustments, the right players in the right roles, small changes that could unlock a competitive team. And honestly, that evaluation doesn't sound like blind optimism. It sounds like the perspective of a veteran football mind who recognizes real talent when he studies a roster. That viewpoint circles right back to the Shedeur Sanders discussion, because if Monken truly believes this team only needs retooling rather than rebuilding, then having a talented young quarterback on a rookie deal becomes incredibly valuable. It's not just helpful, it's essential. Building around a young quarterback with financial flexibility is one of the most powerful advantages in the modern NFL. It's much harder to reshape a roster when massive money is tied up in a player whose availability is uncertain. When your highest-paid player carries questions at the most important position in the sport, every roster decision becomes more complicated. If Sanders wins this competition and develops the way many believe he can, the Browns could suddenly find themselves in a very interesting position. A quarterback franchise on an affordable rookie deal opens doors. It allows the front office to strengthen the rest of the roster. It gives Monken more resources to compete in a brutally tough AFC North. And that brings us back to the point the reporter made earlier about Watson's limited games played. Whether someone personally supports Sanders or not, it's difficult to ignore the financial and football reality facing the Browns. A productive young quarterback on a rookie corner deal could help stabilize the organization moving forward, especially considering the massive financial implications tied to Watson's deal. That contract has become one of the most debated decisions in recent NFL history. To truly move beyond that situation, the franchise needs a young quarterback who can lead the team without the burden of a massive cap hit. Sanders could potentially be that solution if his development continues on the current path. Of course, the conversation wouldn't be complete without mentioning Dillon Gabriel. There are 3 quarterbacks involved in this competition, and Monken has been careful to treat each one with respect. Gabriel was drafted before Sanders and absolutely deserves an opportunity to compete for starting reps. His college career across Central Florida, Oklahoma, and Oregon showcased impressive production and consistency. Monken is right to believe Gabriel has real potential. But let's be honest about the broader narrative unfolding here. Shedeur Sanders sits right at the center of the story. The attention, the headlines, the energy surrounding the team, even the small stories like the birthday gift seem to revolve around him. Monken understands it, Andrew Berry understands it, the reporters covering the team see it clearly, and the fan base certainly feels it. Most importantly, Sanders himself appears comfortable with that spotlight. Instead of shrinking away from the pressure, he seems to embrace it. And that's an important trait for an NFL quarterback. The mental side of the position is often what separates good players from truly great ones. Many physically gifted quarterbacks have struggled when confronted with the enormous expectations, media scrutiny, and relentless pressure that come with leading an NFL franchise. Sanders has already spent years under a microscope. He played college football under the national spotlight while being coached by his father at Jackson State and later at Colorado. Every step of his career was analyzed. Every success and failure was debated. Critics questioned whether his opportunities came from talent or family connections. Yet he handled that pressure. He developed into a legitimate NFL prospect. He endured a chaotic draft process where his stock was constantly debated and his character was scrutinized. He landed in Cleveland, where even his own head coach initially hesitated to publicly support him. And despite all of that, he still managed to step on the field, win games, and show flashes of the talent that generated excitement about his future. That kind of resilience matters. Coaches and front offices value players who can handle adversity, players who remain focused when the pressure builds. Because when the stakes get highest in the NFL, mental toughness often becomes the difference between success and failure.